Welcome to another episode of How I Shoot, the show where we talk about your film production projects shot with Kinefinity cameras. I have with me today Parris Stewart. Parris, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. I'm good.
All right, before we start, tell us a little about yourself and how you came to filmmaking.
Yeah, it's been a kind of a long journey. I've been a filmmaker for I would say 14 years, 13, 14 years. Started actually, I had a small record label in New York with a friend of mine, and we had a couple of acts and bands. And so, long story short, we hired this guy to shoot a music video for us. I think we gave him like $2,000 and was expecting like some sort of Hype Williams $450,000 music video in return. But when I got it back, I was like, I think I can do this. So, like, I've seen enough music videos. And so a friend of mine actually had a old Canon, I think it was a XL1 camera from back in the day. Anyway, he loaned it to me, and I shot my first music video with that. I think I did that, and then another artist saw it that was on a record label called DTP, which had Ludacris on it. So we went to Atlanta, did a music video, and Ludacris was actually in the video, and he was actually so impressed that, like, with this minimal equipment that I was able to shoot a music video, I was getting a lot of requests from artists to shoot music videos. But I didn't know, at that time I was kind of seen as a director shooter kind of thing. And then eventually a friend of mine who was helping me to produce, he's like, you need a cinematographer. So we hired a cinematographer, and we used to work like that for many years. Fast forward like 10 years, I've actually transitioned into more of a full-time cinematographer after being a director, which is a kind of a journey that nobody takes. Everybody kind of goes the other way around.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who goes from director to cinematographer, but for me, I actually always loved shooting more than the directing part of it. Like, I actually like doing with the camera. I actually like lighting and figuring out shots and just the aesthetics of it. And yeah, I've been doing it for about 13 years, and shot tons of music videos, commercials, a lot of short form stuff.
When did you get your first Kinefinity camera?
Oh, first Kinefinity camera, I would say it's probably about 2014, 2015. A friend of mine had the Kinefinity, and I was just blown away. Like, the first time just seeing it, the image, it was like the closest thing at that time to, I guess, like a Red or Alexa. Like, it was in between. I felt like it was between a Red One and Alexa Classic look, that camera. I was like, oh wow, like, and I never heard of this company. I was like strictly in it for the image. A lot of people always have, if they haven't heard of a company or a camera before, but I was like, the image just spoke to me, and that was the first one I had.
Mm. In this episode, we are going to talk about your latest work. And for our viewers, as usual, I have put a link into the description of this video, so feel free to pause it right now and check it out. So, about this project, can you give us an idea in what time frame it was produced, who was involved, and what was your role in it?
Okay, so yeah, this is an interesting project. It was for a makeup brand called Elf, which stands for Eyes, Lips, Face, which I didn't even know at the time. When I listened to the song, I was like, oh, is that what it means? But basically, the project came to, I was called by the marketing company. They had already had the song, and the song was doing really well on TikTok. Like, a lot of people knew the song, and they wanted to do like a music video. And I guess because of my history in music video, they thought it would be a good match. And also it needed some sort of commercial cut downs for like social media and things like that. So then it was like I had to fulfill the needs of a record label, fulfill the needs of a marketing company, and fulfill the needs of the actual brand and the artist, of course. So yeah, I just wanted to show lots of people, like different people using makeup. So whether it was a vlogger, whether it was a skateboarder, whether it was people in a party, I just started to write a concept about all these little scenario vignettes that could be work independently and with the music video. For this particular project, it was important that we had multiple days to shoot, because we wanted to shoot some in New York and some in LA. And at the time, the weather, well, as it is now, is really cold in New York. So there was only so much we could do in New York outside. So that was kind of how it came about. Yeah, we had, I think we might have shot it for like 7 days. Sometimes we did some real small days with small crew. I mean, I think one of the days may have just been me and maybe two PAs and the producer. And then other days we had a full crew, everybody on it, as far as like DIT and grips, gaffers and art department and things like that. So it was an interesting project, and luckily enough, the company was nice enough to, I explained to them, I was like, look, to maximize the way we shoot this, we're going to like have lots of small units and shoot for multiple days. And luckily they were totally cool with it, and they trusted me, trusted my vision to shoot it like that. And I think it helped. because, you know, we were able to get more out of the budget that way.
Tell us a little about the camera setup you were using. How did you rig the camera? What lens? Things like that.
Yeah, so basically, you know, I'm not a big lens guy. I mean, don't get me wrong, I shoot on big projects, and sometimes we have like master primes and ultra primes and all that good stuff when we shoot on the Alexa. But for me, sometimes I like to be able to move fast. Sometimes with a small crew, it's like, you know, going around with like a $30,000 lens, you know, swapping it out in the field. Sometimes it's better for me to kind of go with like a smaller LiDAR lens, which is why on this camera I actually shot the Rokinon Cine DS. They're cheap Cine lenses. I mean, a lot of people kind of frown on them a little bit because they're like, oh, you know, they're because of their price. But to me, they offer like, they're very light, they're pretty fast, they're pretty sharp, and they're all consistent and they're all geared. So we were using a Nucleus M, I think, the follow focus. I actually own that because we were using all things I own. We rented very little equipment as far as camera because we wanted to have a package that at any time if we had to go shoot something, we could. Like we wouldn't have to go to a rental house and get like lenses, follow focus, and all that stuff. So I put together a little rig of the Marvo. I have the Kine back on it. I have the MovCam cage system with handle, which I think is really good, actually. I also had like just the basic two-stage matte box. Yeah, we use the Holy Land 400S, I think it is, wireless transmitter, which we had two of those. Those worked pretty good as well. So it was just this kind of like, I would say, budget-friendly cinema rig compared to what, you know, the camera rigs I usually use on other productions when people demand like the Alexa and all the stuff that comes with it. I just wanted something that we had with us all the time, you know, and we can move fast with, and that's kind of the rig that I put together. So we had a monitor on there, maybe a small HD as well, and that was it. A couple of gold mount batteries, and we were off to the races. You know, like it actually is a really, for me, a liberating way to shoot like that. You know, like I say, I would advise anybody who's you know, to have their own camera, because I feel like the difference of maybe a camera package that's like, I don't know, 200,000. For me, it's like light, small, and I can get the shots I need. And to me, that's always the important thing. And the image to me always looks great. So, you know, that's kind of how I built out my camera. And I think, yeah, it was all handheld. We didn't have any gimbal or like, I think from the beginning we wanted it to feel real. So I opted to do everything handheld. So there was no tripods, no gimbals, no Technocrate, nothing, just straight handheld.
Okay. And did you stabilize some of it in post?
No, just shot as is. You know, I'm you know, pretty good at like, you know, just for what, like sometimes I'd go on a 20 mil. Actually, Rokinon makes a really good 20 mil lens. Actually, it's probably the best lens in the set. Now I have the Kine enhancer, which so I guess you get like a full frame. You're getting like a full frame image. It was pretty stable and didn't have any problems. Like, you know, so yeah, that was pretty much it. It was really bare bones as far as camera is concerned.
All right, cool. So what can you tell us about the lighting on this project?
Oh yeah, so the lighting, so because we did so many days, we had, well, actually we did light quite a fair bit. So the initial kind of music performance part of it. So I kind of think of it like that because we have vignettes and we have the actual artists that are on the record. So those scenes were lit. I think it's called Lightman 4. We had like two of those in frame, which were given a little bit of kickback. And then we actually had a 6 light of that. They're actually from Europe. And somebody was asking me about them because they actually look like really nice lights actually to have in frame. And everybody used to use, back in the day, everybody used to use the Mo Richardson Maxi Brutes, but because they take so much power, and these ones are a lot better. They're LED and they're bicolor. So we have those, two M18s. I actually used an aperture, for a lot of the stuff I used an aperture 120D. That was our kind of go-to light for the stuff that we had with us, because obviously on the big day that we did in LA, that was the biggest production day. We had, 12 bys. We had a big 6 by silver lume, and we had a lot more equipment. also I had a Pro Miss. I think I shot the whole thing with a 1.8, no 1.4 Pro Miss for the
Hmm.
Pro Miss. Pro Miss, which I kind of like to put on a lot of lenses, especially those. I think to me sometimes that gives me more out of the image than the actual lens. I like to kind of manipulate. I like to start with a clean lens and kind of manipulate it rather than, I know people like to get vintage lenses, and I kind of do the opposite. Like I get a clean lens and try to like use filtration. But yeah, so going back to the aperture, we had that, which was a cool light because it's battery powered. We had the Dome Mini 2, which is really quick, pops up really fast. We're able to gel it. And then I had some smaller lights, like I forgot the company, but a few little handheld battery powered RGB lights, and maybe a couple of Titan tubes here and there just for small things. But everything was minimally, because we had the luxury of time. We could shoot like at sunset, like I guess there's like a shot with some girls skating, and we deliberately went around that time so we could shoot available light, and we'd shoot something at night, and we'll just strategically plan our shots to kind of work with our budget and the kind of crew that we had, you know. I felt like a lot of the money was better spent with talent and locations, and also grade, which was really important for this.
So there are a lot of different scenes, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Some are inside and outside, some in bright daylight, others at night. And to me, the common element is they all look very clean. I guess this has something to do because you use this 1.4 Pro Mist. But can you share with us some of your tricks, either during shooting
Sure.
or later in post, in order to get such clean images?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one because, you know, I guess we had, you know, we weren't in any environments that, I mean, there were a few shots that were like tough environments for any camera. But for the most part, I usually rate the camera at like 800. But so I don't have any problems going down lower or higher if I need to. Like a lot of, in my field, I feel like a lot of cinematographers get stuck on like everything has to be at 800. Like once if they know that's the camera's base, they shoot everything at 800. And I know you can shift the sensor in the Kinefinity. I don't know exactly how. I know it's by changing highlight stops, but I usually don't play with that. I mean, I know on the Alexa that I know that like in the daytime I'll shoot 1600 because I feel like I get more details in the highlights. I'm not sure if it works that way with the Marvel. But what I just do is try to really, you know, use the scopes with the vector scope, which is pretty helpful. I have a light meter sometimes I use once in a while, like if I'm dealing with gaffers and I need a light at a certain stop. But yeah, I think overall the camera itself is pretty clean. You know, I mean, you could shoot. I think the highest I shot on this was maybe like 3200. That's as high as I go anyway. Like, you know, I usually just to get a cleaner image, I usually work with just try to open up the lens as much as I can, or if I can't get enough light in, I'll probably compromise with the shutter before I like cranking the ISO up to like levels of where you have to use neat videos. It's something I never really do. So I'll do a lot of other things before I do that. So for instance, like if I'm shooting a scene, I may be like, okay, let's try. If we can't get, and the thing is, because it's a music video, a lot of it is shot in high speed. A lot of it is shot 48. But sometimes I look, we got to shoot this at 24. We've got to open up as much as we can and probably go to like 270s or something like that shutter just to get enough light. But yeah, like the camera is pretty clean. I felt like, you know, the never really had any kind of issues getting exposure, you know. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the editing and color grading. But first up, which codecs did you use?
I shot this on at ProRes 422 HQ, which I guess
Okay.
is, I feel like the middle ground, just for the amount of data it uses and the image.
Yeah. The editing, you did it yourself, I saw somewhere, or
Yeah,
part of it?
well, so yeah, we had it's kind of we had another editor on it, and I feel bad because I kind of took over the edit, but I've edited 90% of all the work I've ever done. If anybody goes to my site, they'll see all the work I've done, and so I have no problems editing. It's just we had so much footage because we were shooting for like 7 days.
Mm.
I wanted somebody else to take a look at it to get a different perspective on it. They had some really good things in the edit, but I just felt like I knew what it needed to really get it to the way it needed to look. So once I got the assembly edit from the first editor, I just kind of manipulated it and got it to where it is now. I mean, there's actually like two versions because there's a version of it with a little intro where you see the guy's name's Ilwano. He's walking to the equipment. The record label at the time felt like, I guess we live in a day and age where people don't want to wait 9 seconds for an intro. So there's a version without that, like it just starts straight away. So I did a director's cut because I felt like that was kind of important to the vibe of it, just to have that. But yeah, so I did the edit. I edit on Final Cut 10, which is another, like, it's weird because a lot of people I work with in the industry I work at, the level I work, nobody uses Final Cut 10. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but maybe one or two people. But I think it's an incredible editing platform. Like I've stuck with it. I've had it from the beginning, and it was a bit sketchy. But to me, it's the fastest editing program out. You know, I don't think there's anything faster on a Mac to me. You know, I've used Premiere and actually I actually like DaVinci Resolve 16 is getting good as far as editing, but I still like Final Cut 10. I think once you get over some of the little initial hurdles, for my money, it's the best editing platform.
And yeah, you mentioned something about the color grading, and I have to say the grading on this video it's so nice. It speaks to me. I really like it personally. But yeah, how did you achieve
like to
that?
take credit, but was that?
How did you achieve that?
Yeah, no. Like I said, I'd like to take credit for it, but that's down to the mill. I'm trying to think. I think his name is Josh. I've got to get his name, but I'll send it if you want to put in notes. He's an excellent colorist at the mill in New York. They color on Mace Light. Yeah, and I mean, when he was coloring it, he didn't know what camera it was. He had no idea what camera and lens. And to him, he just assumed it was like what everybody else uses, like an Alexa and some really super expensive lenses. And he said everything edited, everything colored well, like the latitude held up and it was fine. Like, and it wasn't like he had to struggle. I mean, these guys knock out colors, projects pretty quick. You know, they do it all day and they're really, really good at what they do. But yeah, I was super happy with it. Because to me, that's the true test of the camera as well. Like, yeah, the image looks good, the log, or when you put a log on it, that looks good. But it's when you get it into grading and somebody starts pushing the footage to see, you know, to correct any things that we couldn't do on the day, then you get to really see what it can do, you know. And yeah, I was super happy with it. And those guys are like, you know, I like to think I give them as good of an image I can get, but they definitely take it to the end, you know.
All right, I will ask my last question.
Oh.
And with that, I want to hear from you. If you had one wish, like one feature added to the camera, anything you want, what would it be?
One? Can I get 3?
All right, yeah. Yeah, so you can take your top 3 if you want.
I'll give you top 3 because I think it's important. For me, if they could just get two frames in DCI mode, 4K. I mean, I think it's Ultra HD, the one I use the most, because it fills the full screen. If they can get 2 frames in DCI mode, then that'd be great. That's my personal thing. Yeah, man. And I think the only other thing that I have an issue is the playback. If they can get, I think it's an important thing. Because sometimes we shoot, and people may not notice it because maybe people use these cameras for more narrative situations or maybe just commercials. But I shoot a lot of music videos, and nowadays we shoot so much at 60 frames or high speed because it's quicker because they can get 2 shots for one. So they shoot it all at 48 and then go to 24. Sometimes when we're doing playback, it'd be nice if we could play at double speed because it can only play it, to my knowledge, is at 1 speed.
Yeah, it plays it back at the project FPS which you have set in the camera.
Yeah. So it'd be nice if you could just, just like if you could just press play and press, you know, like 2 times playback or 3 times playback. I'll be happy with 2 times playback. And then, but I think overall that's it. I don't, no camera's perfect, but for my needs and, I think those 2 things would make my life a lot easier. So
Mm.
it's 2, not even 3, so we're good.
All right, well, thank you, Parris, for sharing this with us. And to you out there, please be sure to check out Parris' other great works, to which I will be putting some links into the description. If you haven't already, like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.
All right. Thanks, man.